some of the strangest horror films ever made aren't locked in archives. They're sitting on YouTube, free. So why does almost nobody talk about them? Decades ago, these films terrified drive-in audiences, then quietly faded into obscurity. Today, they hide in plain sight, packed with eerie imagery, bizarre plots, and moments that still feel disturbingly modern. But a few titles here carry reputations even horror historians debate. And the final film? It's the one viewers still wish they had never discovered. Carnival of Souls, 1962. The accident is brief. A car plunges from a bridge into dark water, vanishing beneath the surface while witnesses assume everyone inside is dead. But hours later, one woman emerges from the riverbank mud, alive, though no one can quite explain how. That survivor is Mary Henry, a church organist who relocates to a quiet Kansas town hoping to rebuild her life. Instead, something begins following her. At first, it appears only in reflections, a pale man with hollow eyes watching from a distance. Then he appears in crowds, in empty spaces, standing silently at the edge of her vision. The world around Mary slowly becomes unstable. Conversations fade mid-sentence. At times, she cannot hear anyone speaking to her. Other moments, it feels as if no one can see her at all. Then there's the pavilion, an abandoned amusement structure rising beside the Great Salt Lake. Its empty ballroom echoing with wind and dust. Mary feels an irresistible pull toward it, as if something there is waiting. What makes Carnival of Souls unsettling isn't violence, it's disconnection. Scenes stretch with quiet dread, building a sense that Mary may already be trapped in something she doesn't understand. When the truth finally arrives, the film delivers one of the most chilling twists in early horror cinema. And once you know it, every earlier scene feels different. The Last Man on Earth, 1964. Morning begins with a ritual. A man wakes in a silent house, checks the boarded windows, and loads wooden stakes into a canvas bag. Outside, the streets are empty. Not quiet. Empty. Dr. Robert Morgan is the last known survivor of a global plague. Every other human being has been transformed into a slow-moving, diseased creature that emerges only after sunset. During the day, Morgan hunts them. He drives through abandoned neighborhoods, dragging bodies into piles and burning them before nightfall. It's mechanical work now, something closer to sanitation than survival. But night is different. When darkness falls, the infected gather outside his home. Dozens of them, sometimes hundreds. They call his name in low, pleading voices. Not monsters. Former neighbors. Former friends. What makes The Last Man on Earth disturbing isn't action. It's repetition. The same routines day after day. The same empty streets. Not the same sense that civilization collapsed quietly and completely. Vincent Price delivers one of his most restrained performances here, portraying a man slowly dissolving into loneliness and guilt. And unlike later adaptations of the same story, this version refuses comfort. Because eventually Morgan begins to realize something even more unsettling. He may not be the future of humanity. He may be its last ghost. Dementia, 1963. The plan begins with opportunity. Late one evening, when a wealthy man collapses from a sudden heart attack while boating on a quiet lake. His wife, Louise, is the only witness. For a moment, she stares at the lifeless body beside her. Then she makes a decision. If the family learns about his death immediately, her financial security could disappear overnight. The inheritance she expected may never reach her, so she chooses silence. Instead of reporting the death, Louise pushes the body into the dark water and lets the lake swallow the evidence. To the outside world, her husband will simply be away on business. Her next move is even more calculated. She travels to Ireland to stay with her husband's wealthy family at the Halloran estate, a sprawling lakeside mansion filled with old traditions and quiet resentment. Louise intends to maintain the illusion that her husband is still alive somewhere abroad while she waits patiently for the inheritance to finalize. But the Halloran family is far from normal. Every year, they gather at the edge of the same lake for a strange memorial ceremony, honoring a young girl who drowned decades earlier. Flowers are placed in the water, candles flicker in silence. No one likes to talk about what really happened. The ritual suggests something unfinished beneath the calm surface of the estate. Soon after Louise arrives, the deaths begin. Each killing is swift and brutal, delivered by a silent figure wielding an axe that appears suddenly from the shadows. The panic spreads through the household as suspicion turns inward. What makes Dementia 13 especially fascinating is its director. This eerie gothic thriller was one of the earliest films by Francis Ford Coppola, years before he became one of Hollywood's most influential filmmakers. Even on a minimal budget, Coppola fills the story with atmosphere. Fog drifting across the lake, dark corridors echoing with footsteps, and long silences that stretch tension to the breaking point. By the final revelation, the inheritance scheme feels almost insignificant, because the real secret haunting the estate began long before Louise ever arrived. Night of the Living Dead, 1968. It begins with something small. A brother and sister drive through quiet countryside to visit their father's grave. The cemetery is empty, the afternoon calm, the conversation mildly irritated but ordinary. Then someone appears between the tombstones. But at first he looks like any other passerby, a slow-moving man wandering across the grass. But something about him feels wrong. His walk is stiff, his expression empty. When he attacks, the violence comes without warning. Barbara barely escapes and flees to a nearby farmhouse where she barricades herself inside. Soon, others arrive, each carrying fragments of terrifying news heard through broken radio broadcasts. Something is spreading across the country. The dead are returning to life, and they are hunting the living. George Romero's Night of the Living Dead was made on a modest budget by independent filmmakers who had no idea they were about to reshape the entire horror genre. Yet its influence became enormous. Ironically, a simple distribution mistake placed the film into the public domain, allowing it to circulate freely, which is why it remains widely available on YouTube today. Inside the farmhouse, fear quickly turns into conflict. Survivors argue about strategy. Should they barricade the upper floor or hide in the cellar? Should they trust each other at all? Outside, the numbers grow. Dark silhouettes slowly gather in the surrounding fields, drawn toward the house by movement and sound. The tension becomes unbearable, but what truly cemented the film's legacy was its ending. Bleak, abrupt, and almost documentary in its cruelty, the final moments shocked audiences in 1968. Not because the monsters won, but because the world suddenly felt capable of something even darker. House on Haunted Hill, 1959. The invitation sounds irresistible. Spend one night inside a haunted mansion and survive until morning. If you succeed, you'll walk away with $10,000. For 5 strangers struggling with money, the offer seems worth the risk. The eccentric millionaire hosting the event, played with delicious menace by Vincent Price, promises that the doors will remain unlocked. Anyone who becomes too frightened can leave whenever they choose. At least, that's what he claims. The mansion itself has a long and disturbing history. Several people have died within its walls over the years. Murders, accidents, unexplained tragedies. Locals avoid the property entirely, whispering that something inside the house still remembers those events. As midnight approaches, the atmosphere begins to shift. Doors slam without warning. Footsteps echo down empty hallways. A ghostly woman glides silently through the corridors. Somewhere beneath the mansion sits a bubbling vat of acid, a grim reminder that the building has already claimed lives before. But the most famous moment arrives with a skeleton. During original theatrical screenings, director William Castle introduced a promotional gimmick known as Emergo. At a key moment in the film, a plastic skeleton would suddenly float across the theater ceiling above the audience. Viewers screamed. Some ducked in panic. Others burst into nervous laughter. It transformed the movie into an experience audiences never forgot. Yet beyond the playful theatrics lies something more interesting. House on Haunted Hill is not just a ghost story. It's a puzzle. Every guest inside the mansion has secrets. Every locked door hides another clue. And by the end, the real mystery isn't whether the house is haunted. It's which person inside the house intends to become the next killer. The Brain That Wouldn't Die, 1962. The crash happens in seconds. A speeding car loses control on a quiet road, tires screaming against the pavement before the vehicle spins violently into a ditch. Metal folds, glass shatters. When the wreckage finally settles, the silence feels absolute. One passenger is already gone. The other should be. But Dr. Bill Courtner refuses to accept that reality. Instead of calling for help, The ambitious young surgeon drags the ruined body of his fiancée, John, performs a procedure that crosses every boundary of science and morality. He saves only her head. Against all logic, John awakens. She can see, she can hear, she can think, but she cannot move. Her body is gone, replaced by a metal tray and laboratory wires that keep her alive, while Kortner proudly explains his next step. This is only the beginning, he insists. The real solution is simple. He will find her a new body. Soon, Kortner begins wandering through beauty contests, modeling agencies, and nightclubs, quietly evaluating women who might become the perfect replacement for Jan's head. To him, they are no longer people. They are spare parts. But the laboratory hides another secret. Locked behind a heavy door in a shadowed closet lives something Kortner created long before Jan's accident. A grotesque, unstable creature from a previous experiment, abandoned and left to survive in darkness. It waits. And as Kortner's obsession grows more reckless, the fragile balance inside the laboratory begins to collapse. Because the monster isn't the only one losing control. White Zombie, 1932. Long before zombies became flesh-eating monsters, they were something quieter and far more unsettling. They did not chase victims. They did not hunger for human flesh. They simply obeyed. In White Zombie, a young couple travels to Haiti to celebrate their upcoming marriage, expecting a romantic escape beneath the tropical sun. But their arrival attracts the attention of a wealthy plantation owner, whose fascination with the bride quickly turns into obsession. Determined to possess her at any cost, he turns to a man whispered about in fearful tones across the island. A voodoo master named Murder Legendre, played by Bela Lugosi with eerie calm and piercing eyes. Legendre possesses a terrifying ability. Through strange powders, hypnotic rituals, and occult knowledge, he can strip a person of their will entirely. The victim doesn't die. Instead, they become something else. Their body still moves, their lungs still breathe, but their mind has been erased, leaving behind a silent figure that exists only to follow commands. Soon the bride herself becomes one of Legendre's creations. She wanders through candlelit corridors with blank, lifeless eyes. Shall be her personality completely gone. The transformation is not violent. It is disturbingly peaceful. One of the film's most haunting sequences unfolds inside a sugar mill, where rows of zombie workers silently operate grinding machinery through the night. They never stop. They never speak. If one stumbles toward the deadly gears, the others do not react. No one shows fear. No one feels pain. Released in 1932, White Zombie is widely considered the first feature-length zombie film ever produced. Its horror doesn't come from gore or attack scenes. It comes from the idea that a person can still be walking, long after the soul has disappeared. The Terror, 1963. The soldier first sees her through fog. She stands alone on a desolate shoreline, her white dress moving gently in the wind while waves crash against jagged rocks below. The entire coastline feels abandoned, yet she appears completely calm, almost as if she belongs there. When the soldier approaches, she vanishes. No footprints, no explanation. Napoleonic officer André Duval, played by a young Jack Nicholson, becomes obsessed with finding her again. His search leads him inland through forests and cliffs until he arrives at a crumbling coastal castle surrounded by mist. Inside lives Baron von Leppe. The aging nobleman, portrayed by horror legend Boris Karloff, greets Duval with guarded suspicion. When the soldier describes the mysterious woman by the sea, the Baron grows pale. Because the woman Duval saw cannot exist. The Baron's wife died 20 years earlier. Yet the sightings continue. Duval repeatedly encounters the silent figure wandering the cliffs, drifting through ruined gardens, and appearing in places where no living person should be able to reach. Each encounter deepens the mystery. Is she a ghost, a hallucination, or part of something the Baron is desperately trying to hide? The story behind The Terror is almost as strange as the film itself. It was shot rapidly using leftover castle sets from another production, and several directors briefly stepped in during filming. One of them was a young Francis Ford Coppola, years before he became famous. The result is a film that feels dreamlike and slightly unstable. Scenes drift from one eerie location to another as fog rolls through empty corridors and distant voices whisper about curses and lost souls. By the time the truth is revealed, one unsettling idea becomes clear. Some hauntings are not supernatural at all. They are the echoes of choices no one can undo. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, 1920. The town fair arrives quietly. A strange man named Dr. Caligari sets up a small carnival attraction, promising visitors something extraordinary. A living somnambulist, a sleepwalker who has remained asleep for 23 years. Inside the tent lies Cesare, thin, pale, motionless inside a coffin-like cabinet. When Caligari awakens him, the crowd gasps. The somnambulist opens his eyes slowly, as if returning from another world. According to the doctor, Cesare can answer any question about the future. One curious spectator asks the wrong one. How long will I live? Cesare stares at him. Until dawn. The man is murdered that very night. Soon the town falls into panic as a series of killings begin, all linked to the eerie carnival performer and the mysterious doctor controlling him. But what makes the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari truly disturbing is its world. Nothing looks normal. Buildings lean at impossible angles. Windows twist like broken glass. Streets curve unnaturally beneath painted shadows. The entire environment feels unstable, as if reality itself has been distorted. Released in 1920, the film became the defining work of German expressionist horror, influencing generations of filmmakers. Yet the real shock comes in the final minutes. Because the story the audience has been watching may not be the truth at all. And once that possibility appears, the entire film becomes something far more unsettling. Messiah of Evil, 1973. The town seems normal at first. Point Dume sits quietly along the California coast, its streets nearly empty except for a few late-night diners and flickering streetlights. When Arletty arrives searching for her missing father, the silence feels almost peaceful, but something in the town feels wrong. Her father's home is abandoned, his journals scattered across the floor. The pages describe strange events unfolding in the community, people wandering at night, drawn toward the ocean as if responding to an unseen call. Then there's the hunger. Residents begin appearing in unusual places after dark. They move slowly. They stare too long. And sometimes they gather in groups without speaking. Two scenes in particular have become legendary among cult horror fans. One takes place inside a brightly lit supermarket after closing hours, where a lone woman realizes she may not be alone among the aisles. The other unfolds inside an empty movie theater, where figures silently fill the seats one by one until escape becomes impossible. Unlike most horror films, Messiah of Evil never clearly explains what is happening in Point Dume. There are hints of ancient rituals, references to a mysterious blood moon, stories about outsiders who arrived centuries ago and never truly left. By the end, the mystery remains unresolved, because the town may not be cursed. It may simply be changing. The Phantom of the Opera, 1925. The opera house is magnificent. Grand staircases, velvet curtains, crowds dressed in evening gowns and tuxedos. To the audience, it feels like the center of culture and elegance in Paris. But beneath the stage lies a hidden world. Dark corridors stretch beneath the theater. Secret passages wind through the stone foundations. And somewhere in those shadows lives a man the performers whisper about, only in fear. They call him the Phantom. For years, strange accidents have haunted the opera house. Stage lights fall without warning. Performers vanish. And occasionally a voice is heard echoing through the empty halls long after midnight. No one has ever clearly seen the Phantom, except one young singer. Christine Daae begins receiving mysterious guidance from an unseen teacher who claims to be a musical spirit. Her voice improves rapidly, earning her a starring role on the stage above. But the lessons come with conditions. Christine must obey the voice, and she must never try to see the face behind it. That warning becomes impossible to follow. During one quiet moment beneath the theater, Christine removes the Phantom's mask, revealing one of the most shocking images in early cinema. Lon Chaney's skeletal makeup terrified audiences in 1925, reportedly causing viewers to scream inside theaters. Nearly a century later, the moment still works. Because the horror isn't just the face, it's the loneliness hiding behind it. The Bat, 1959. The killer leaves almost no evidence, no fingerprints, no clear identity. Only a calling card left behind after each attack, a small drawing of a bat. Newspapers quickly adopt the name. the Bat. Some believe the murderer is a master thief hiding among high society. Others think he's simply insane. What everyone agrees on is that the killings always seem connected to stolen money that has never been recovered. Then mystery writer Cornelia Van Gorder rents a quiet mansion for the summer. The house sits on the edge of town, large and isolated, with long hallways and too many locked doors. Perfect for writing. Unfortunately, the mansion also happens to be where police believe the missing fortune may be hidden, which means the Bat might visit. Soon, strange things begin happening inside the house. Windows open in the night. Footsteps echo through empty corridors. A shadow moves past the staircase when no one should be awake. Cornelia begins investigating, using the same instincts that made her novels famous. But the deeper she digs, the more suspects emerge, including a nervous doctor, a mysterious caretaker, and even a bank employee linked to the stolen funds. Meanwhile, the Bat moves silently through the mansion, watching, waiting. Unlike many horror films of its era, the Bat blends suspense with a clever mystery structure. Every character has secrets, and every hallway hides another clue. By the final reveal, the question isn't whether the killer will strike again. It's whether anyone inside the house will survive long enough to expose him. Some of the strangest horror films ever made weren't lost. They were simply ignored, buried in forgotten uploads, sitting quietly on YouTube where anyone can find them, if they know what to search for. But the deeper you go into retro horror, the stranger the discoveries become. And the question isn't just which film scared audiences the most, it's why these stories were almost forgotten at all.